Good evening. Well, of course, the arguments around Diego Garcia have raged over the course of the last week, with the British Prime Minister initially telling the Americans you can't use the base, and then you can use the base. Well, overnight, the Mauritian government, remember, that's the country that Keir Starmer wants to give Diego Garcia and the Chagos Islands to, they came out with a statement and said one or two interesting things. To begin, they said Mauritius, mindful of its commitment to the international rules-based order, calls for an immediate ceasefire and recourse to peaceful means of resolving disputes between the states concerned. So what Mauritius are saying there is, basically, if we were in charge, we would never have let the Americans use the base at all. That will not be lost. They also went on to restate their aim and claim to the islands. The Interministerial Committee notes, with concern, although the agreement concerning the Chagos Archipelago, including Diego Garcia, was signed as far back as May 22nd, 2025, it has not yet entered into force and there is no visibility as to when this would occur. And the presence of unauthorised individuals on one of the islands of the Chagos Archipelago. So they're worried about that, and they go on to point the finger. They go on to point the finger, and they say that a number of wealthy individuals, as well as certain politicians, are complicit in bringing about such illegal presence on one of the islands of the Chagos Archipelago. What a dreadful thing to say. I really can't understand where that came from. All quite beyond me. But what does it mean? What's the future of Diego Garcia? I now think it is literally impossible, because of a 1966 treaty signed between the UK and the Americans. Trump has a veto on us giving away the islands, and I now believe there is no way he will not exercise that veto. Do you agree with me about the future of Diego? Tweet hashtag Farage and GB News, or email farage@gbnews.com. Well, let's go live to Misley Mandarin, the First Minister of the Chagos Islands, and there he is on Ile de Croix. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. Misley, what do you make of what the Mauritians are saying overnight?
Hi, Nigel. Good evening all to the GB News viewers. This is something out of an horror movie. Remember, my dad was deported illegally when he was 14. When my dad came here, whichever they came, but he is here. But now the Mauritian government say he's illegal, and this don't make sense at all. I'm the descendants of the Chagosian people. My dad island, and this is my island as well. I'm Chagosian, and this called Chagos Island, by the way. This is not Mauritius. This is Chagos Island. I'm a Chagosian. Why would you say?
Well, they think. I mean, they think differently, Misley. You know, although, as I say, I mean, in terms of the Americans and Trump, you know, you're perfectly comfortable, aren't you, with Diego Garcia being used?
Of course, and I did before our Prime Minister Keir Starmer, right, flip-flop about Diego Garcia. I did in statement and make it clear that we are friends with the US, and we gave, as a First Minister, I'm not only the First Minister of Peros Banos where I am, I'm First Minister of Diego Garcia as well. And I gave my blessing to the US to use Diego Garcia for a military purpose. So they got my blessing.
And you also, I remember a couple of weeks ago when we first spoke, when you were there, you were talking about possibly, I think, renaming the Eagle Islands if Trump vetoes this terrible surrender by the UK government.
Yes, I'm a man of my words. Yes, and I said Eagle Island, that would be Trump Island, and that still stands. So what the President Trump have to do now, have to put his foot down and say stop that deal and exercise that 1962 treaty and stop that deal, because that deal is appalling. People from, and even, which is sad, people which are Chagosian in Mauritius, and invite the Chagosian leader from Mauritius to come. Forget about any political. Come and live with us in the tent. He refused. He refused. He is a puppet of the Mauritian government.
All right. And Misli, finally, you've been settled there for a couple of weeks. There are now 6 of you. How is it working out?
We work very, very, very fine. And British Park just I share a video of myself. We did our power station. We eating well, and we've been living in this island for centuries. We're living and we're not going nowhere. More we stay, more we settle, and more permanent that's going to be.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Extraordinary story, Maurice, isn't it? I mean, what do you make of them being there?
Look, I just think that this deal was always a bad idea. This was always wrong.
The human rights lawyers in charge.
Well, that's the problem, and they're just working on interpretations. I saw in the Telegraph they said an edict from the United Nations. The United Nations does not give edicts, and there was absolutely no reason to go ahead with this. This went on under the previous government as well.
Yeah, but we
didn't
press the button on it.
People have got to understand that this rules-based international order. By the way, the Mauritian government was speaking like they were the Chinese. I mean,
amazing, wasn't
press
it?
release was straight.
Well, don't forget, China has enormous influence over Mauritius.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So now it's absolutely clear that the Mauritius government is a spokesman for the PCC. I mean, that's straightforward. And it's also clear now with the action in Iran that Diego Garcia is absolutely central to our strategic interests. So I really think that this should just go into the rubbish bin of history, and we should leave this deal.
But it's actually been at the centre, Maurice, of this government's foreign policy. So the U-turn on this would be hugely embarrassing.
Well, that would imply that there was a centre of this government's foreign policy. I mean, what you can see is genuine tension and confusion between this still being committed, like I say about the Prince album, to dancing like it's 1999.
Yeah, sure.
You know, that it's all
sure.
And understanding that the world in which we live in now is really based on strategic alliances, bilateral alliances.
And it's so interesting in a way, Kwasi, because to begin with, those of us that were getting up in the House talking about Chagos and writing articles and feeling strongly, sort of, well, what on earth are they on about? I mean, what is it? Suddenly, Diego Garcia really is at the centre of this, isn't it?
Well, a couple of things have happened. I mean, when Labour came in, of course, President Biden was still the president. And you could bet your bottom dollar that if the Democrats had won in the White House, this would be a done and dusted. They would have given the islands.
Yeah.
The Democrats
That's probably right.
would have ticked at that. But of course, things changed. Trump won, and now with Iran, it seems pretty unlikely, as you say, that he will agree to giving.
Well, I think after what Mauritius have said, he can't possibly agree, can he?
Exactly, he can't. And Labour ministers last year were saying it has to be done on US say-so. Essentially, the US had they said we wouldn't do this.
But we have this treaty, don't we?
Yes,
we have this 66 treaty.
That's right. That's right.
Where effectively we say we have to agree on this.
And that's what they didn't refer to it explicitly, but they did say repeatedly that if the President of the United States doesn't sign off on it, we won't do the deal. They were very clear about that.
Yeah.
But so if he vetoes it, then it's dead.
But it shouldn't be the case that we go with this American. This is clearly in our interests to maintain.
This is the human rights. International law trumps everything.
Human rights,
regardless of national interest.
Human rights are wonderful, unless you're Chagosian.
Yeah, sure.
And then for some reason, we don't seem to care.
So the international...
these are not human rights as we understand it. I think it's really important to say this. I absolutely uphold the integrity of each person.
But the legal basis...
What this is about the rule of... It's not about the rule of law, it's about the rule of lawyers. And they have had dominion in the previous era. Trump is a very important part. Brexit was a very important part. Trump is a very important part of understanding that we're now in an era of sovereignty. And we have to exert our sovereignty and say that it's clear that we have fundamental interests in maintaining the island, and that's that.
And with that sovereignty comes democracy.
And that's the beautiful thing.
Because isn't this the trouble with the rules-based?
No, but this U-turn, if it which we think it will happen, is in a way symbolically one of the worst U-turns of the 14 or 15 that they have, because it's on an international stage, and the whole world will be able to see how blundering we were.
We're going to have to require clarity on what constitutes an aggressive and defensive.
We're going to come to that. We're going to come to that after the break.